Welcome back. We're still here with the Executive Director of United Way Mesa County, Zebulon Miracle. We talked about a little bit of your early upbringing and what you're doing now. What has been the most rewarding part of your job up to this point?
Oh goodness, I guess it would depend on what chapter of jobs we're talking about. So when I was at the museum, I was very proud of being able to connect people from the area and from outside the area to the stories that happen here, and have people leaving going, oh, now I understand why this happened, or now I understand this is how things are today. If we were to look at today at United Way Mesa County, I would have to say I'm very proud of launching new programs over these last couple of years. Before, United Way was always viewed as just that community impact fund that everyone give a little bit and we can create a lot as far as fundraising, and that's still part of our DNA. But to be able to actually launch some new impact programs, again, 40,000 books released free of charge to the community is something that I take a lot of pride in. And really sitting back, looking at what those community needs are, looking at where we can help, where not another single nonprofit can work, but how can we enhance that work, those are things I'm really proud of being able to offer.
What would your advice be to people who are curious about anything that you do, whether it's becoming a museum curator themselves or being a part of something like United Way? What would your advice be to them?
Ask questions and get involved. I would say those are the two key things. Never be afraid to ask a question. I would do a lot of talks, or I will lead a lot of trips and tours for people, and it's the people that always ask questions that got the most out of the program, right? So don't feel like you have to be that silent person. And same thing when it comes to community issues. If you're not sure, well, why is this happening? Why is that happening? Don't be afraid to ask. Like, always ask. That's the key. We sometimes feel vulnerable when we ask, but you got to have your curiosity outweigh that vulnerable feeling. You have to not be afraid to ask, just like your job. You don't know the answers unless you ask, right? So asking is key, so always ask. And the other is get engaged. It's one thing to ask and then kind of disappear for a bit, but get engaged. Volunteer somewhere, join a board, just get engaged. So take that curiosity, make it actually move you quite literally to do something, and just get engaged. There's plenty of opportunities to get engaged. So ask questions, get engaged. That's going to help both create that spark of curiosity, but also help it develop.
You talk about really being involved in community here, and not just here, but in other places that you've visited as well. What has been the most challenging aspect of getting involved in these communities?
There's a number of challenges that I think that we see. On the individual personal level, sometimes it's just that confusion of, well, where do I even go? Like that helplessness of, well, I want to research my family's history, but where do I even go? I want to know more about the geology of the Colorado National Monument, but where do I go? And so sometimes just not knowing where to go can be very difficult. We talked about that feeling of being vulnerable as an individual as well, that, well, I could take that class, but I'm going to be the oldest person there, or it's going to be awkward, it's going to be hard. You got to let all that go. Just go over your fears and any worry, and know that that's how we find answers. That's how we find truth, is actually going out. So I see that as being very difficult for people to do. Sometimes, too, agencies don't realize that there are people that want to get involved. And so one of my jobs is to help agencies, help nonprofits, help other groups make it easy for people to get involved. And so we're trying to make it more easy for agencies to get people to come to them and understand what's available for them. There are plenty of ways to be engaged, but we understand sometimes the two don't always meet.
Why is it so important to have opportunities like these within a community, like a small community such as Grand Junction?
Two things. One, it just makes the community that much better. If you want to improve X, Y, or Z issue, you have to be a part of it. We can't just have the same 3 or 4 or 5 people being part of the solution. You could be part of that solution. So it's important to get involved because you can actually make that difference. You can help move the needle on a problem within our community, but only if you become engaged. And two, you're going to have a much more satisfied, fulfilled life and a sense of community. I believe that communities are defined by shared experiences. So your community is who you share experiences with. So if you start being engaged, if you start being part of something, you're going to become part of the community, and the community is going to become part of you. So get engaged, not only to improve your community, but just at its heart, become a part of the community.
Mm-hmm. What do you think your career is going to look like in a couple of years from now? Are you going to change roles and go into something, you know, even in bigger? And I don't want to say better, because they've all been really interesting.
You know, one of the things that I've really appreciated in my career paths is that I've been able to make an impact and improve our community in different ways, shapes, and forms. So where's this going to look in 5 years? Hopefully I'll be employed in 5 years, because I still have a family's mouth to feed. So hopefully still employed. But you know, as long as I'm making an impact on our community, as long as I feel like our community is becoming a better place, as long as I have a better place to raise my son, as long as I have that fulfillment that our community is growing and that my curiosity itch is being scratched, I'm going to be happy wherever I'm at.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me,
Thank you.
Zebulon. That wraps up this week's edition of Western Slope Weekly. I'm Hannah Hickman. We'll see you here next week. Good night.